Actually, I was. I guess I was talking to myself, but that's okay. I wasn't saying anything important. So I said, just bear with me a second. I just want to see who's not here. Just give it a minute, but then we'll start in a minute or so. Thank you for letting me know that. It's like very quiet. All right, let's see. Everybody have a good day. Through. Okay, good. Yeah, I was just playing head games with you. Just testing it out there. Oh, so-so day? Just a so-so day, Erica? Okay, 1 second. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Okay. Yeah, I'm into that. Friday is almost here. Okay, so 1 second. So here. Yes. There we go. That's what I was waiting for. I'm missing Karen. It's interesting too. I have to think about that. All right, here we go. All right, and I'm glad Paul's joined us now because part of the thing what I'm going to start with was a question that I believe he was the one that had last time about balance. Right? Was that you last time, Paul? Did you ask a question about like more detail about when we were talking about the concept of balance on Monday? I guess actually I mean Monday. Okay, let's see. Anyway, it's a cool thing anyways to go over to review, so we'll do it whatever we go through. All right. So I touched upon, well, actually, I've touched upon a lot of different things. And tonight, I'll just give you a quick rundown about what we're going to cover as well. Tonight, we are going to talk about some web stuff. We're going to talk about some legal stuff. So it'll be a lot more type heavy because I might want you to be able to have it at a quick glance. So there's a lot more writing on the slides than I usually do, but it's because it's all the legal stuff. So I just want to let you know that. But it's all important, so we got to go over it. And we will also do a review. So, are any of you guys going to be doing an exam? Because some people do an exam thing and some don't. All right, perfect. Then I definitely going to do the review again. So, good deal. Perfect. So you want to pay attention to the review because it really covers a lot of the stuff that'll be on the test. That's why I picked out the things that I did. That's just a hint. So, there we go. All right. So let's go over this. All right. There we go. Would you say that this design is balanced? Personally, I kind of really like it. It's a book cover. Mm-hmm. Yep, good deal. Because it's not just, it's not that it's not in terms of balancing two mirrored sides, but in this case, it's type and shape offsetting each other. So the illustration on the left side is basically built of shapes, while the right side of the design is primarily type. And the two are placed in the format in such a way as to create a sense of near perfect balance. And the dark vignetted tail, the border and the tail of the cat coming up to the right edge of the cover. I wish I had a pointer. Do wonders too. Just it makes the whole design stable and balanced. So why are we going over this? Because balance is the attainment of optical and psychological equilibrium in a design. And there are two main kinds of the balance. I mentioned it in passing before. Symmetrical, it's an even placement of visual weight in the design. And what tends to be more interesting, I think, is the asymmetrical balance, which creates uneven spaces and a sense of imbalance, making tension and a dynamic suggestion of visual movement. Asymmetrical balance refers to a psychological or felt balance. Space and shape don't need to be evenly dispersed on the page. That's not what we're going for that. But people like balance. We're creatures of symmetry, and we appreciate it in everything. Design is like a real world building. It needs to be balanced or it doesn't work. So just some ideas about how to achieve it. Color. Colors have weight. Colors have weight. Red tends to be heavy. Baby blue, it tends to be light. Shape, squares come across as being heavier than circles psychologically. Lines, obviously thin lines, less, versus thick lines can do some balance with that. Size, larger equals heavier. And it's a matter of just playing with it and using the elements to create stability or a sense of dynamic space. And it's pretty vital because a design can be ruined if there is poor balance. So it's worth going over this again. It doesn't need to be a 50-50 in a boring mathematical sense, just so you realize that too. Just different elements should just add up to balance, like in this case here. So here's another example. Let's go through it. And this is something that I haven't actually really showed before either, but graphic design isn't just the posters and that. Which picture? Sorry. Are we talking about the one that I just had? The cat? Oh, okay. It's balanced because of the shapes being balanced on one side and the typography being balanced kind of against it. That's where it actually comes in, that the picture is balanced. It's the whole way that it's put together. Let me just go back over here. I'll just do a quick. All right. Actually, this is good for a couple of reasons. Aside from the fact that, like I said, I haven't really actually shown a package design. It's kind of nice to see something different because mostly show either websites or print, and thought we'd mix it up a bit, show you this package design thing. The other thing that I think is interesting about it is it is something I just got off of. Like, I didn't take a picture of this. It's just something off of the internet. You can just see the quality of it is pretty bad. So just good example of that why, what resolution matters. And that's, like those of you who have, pretty much everybody has a camera phone, at least this, camera in their phone these days. But you hear talks about pixels, like a 10 pixel camera. The higher that is, it means the higher the resolution. It means the higher that you can actually have an image be larger. So we'll go on to some more talk about images today, but what's the deal with this? The fine detail in the floral illustration on the right is well balanced by the negative space on the left. So the high value of the illustration is also in balance with the low value of the brown in the negative space. And the contrast in texture between the illustration and negative space is also a form of balance. The plain area at the bottom containing the company name serves to emphasize the content there, and this use of space is effective. Why is it effective? Because generally we actually prefer visual weight to be in the lower right hand corner. We read right to left, so we like to end on the right. We also read top to bottom, so we like to end at the bottom. And the designer of this lotion package was obviously well aware of how placing the visual weight at the bottom which is asymmetrical, by the way, of the two balances out the smaller part with the flared top, which has more surface area. And the band of color provides stability to design, while the floral illustration provides interest and a more freer, more freedom. So that's just hopefully two things that help clear that up a little bit more before we go into that. Okay. So, legalities. We're going to go on and talk about information on ethical font usage. Is a font copyrightable? So again, this could be details. You'll have it here if to read afterwards if it gets a little bit hairy, because we only have the 2 hours left to get tonight. So just so you know why I kind of sometimes move through this a little bit quickly. But anytime, feel free to ask me a question. Is a font copyrightable? It comes down to typeface versus font. A typeface is a collection of letters and symbols styled to create a unified collection, while a font is the software and the mechanism used to produce the typeface. So, and since we live here, this is what's important to us at the moment, but in the US, a typeface is not copyrightable, but can still be subject to design, patent, and trademark. And the reasoning behind this is that their functionality eclipses their creativity. On the other hand, a font can be copyrighted and must be licensed for use, as the software used to create the typeface is considered to have the requisite creativity for copyright. Very confusing, but I'm going to give you some sources or if you want to research this further. But there are actually legal issues about fonts and how you use them for printing, web, etc. Whether or not you can pass on a font to the client when you've created your design with it. So that's what that's coming from. So if I outline a typeface using design software, I'm okay, right? Guess I don't know how many of you played with Adobe Illustrator, but for the most part, that's one of the good places to do that. You can actually create outlines. And if you don't know what I mean, you want me to show you, I'd be happy to do that because it only takes a second to go to Illustrator and show you what I'm talking about. So, yeah, you want to see that, the outlines? Okay, I'll show you. So with a couple of stipulations, yes, you still have to purchase a license to the font you're using. You have to personally create the outline because the actual outlining of the typeface, the combination of points you select to imitate the shape of the type, is copyrighted and it belongs to the person who created it. So let's go out of here just a second. And open it. Get rid of this one for now. Alrighty. So right now this is set up in a web workspace. I just like to tell you guys it doesn't really matter. I'll switch over to Essentials though. It's all nice and clean right now. Doing Command N, or it would be Control N for just a new document. I'm not going to worry about what it comes up with, but actually let's just say prints because it'll just do a letter. We'll turn it that way. We'll just do it landscape. And then actually at the same time I can show you a couple of type trips in this. So hold on. What I just did right now is I did Command 0. It would be Control 0 for that. And what that does is fits it in within my screen here. The other thing that would do this, hold on, I'm just going to navigate out. So I'm doing Command minus to do that, and I'm doing Command plus to do that. And if at any time I want to zoom into exactly 100%, I double click on that. And if I want to fit in screen, I double click on the hand tool. So these are just some great navigation tips that work within all the Adobe software programs. And things that I use all the time, so it's worth going over it because hopefully you'll use shortcuts to make things go quicker. So here's another great thing. This is T, or you can even just do the letter T for the type tool. It'll take you right to it. And it looks like a T, so they made that kind of convenient. Let's say if I wanted to limit my type to like a certain area like this, what I'm just doing is clicking and dragging on the workspace here so that I can just limit the size of my type to fit within this box, this blue bounding box that you're seeing right now. And it automatically starts out with the default font, which is very boring type, which is, actually I shouldn't say that, it's not a bad font, but it's just the idea that, you know, it's no matter, it always starts out with this small thing, and obviously you can't really see it. All right, let's do something really exciting like this is my headline. All right, I can say Command A to select all, and I can hold down all my modifier keys. So in my case, it's Command Option Shift. If you're a PC, it would be Control Alt Shift. And I'm using the greater than sign to just automatically make this bigger. You can see what happens. See, if it's because it's constraining in the box. And what I'm doing is making it, whoops. And I'm going through it. It's making it. There's also the shortcuts for tracking as well in there. But also up here is the font size. And it has some quick ones that you can go to. Like we can just go ahead and pick 72 and do that. And then here's another really fun thing to do. This works in Photoshop. And actually I kind of like doing it in Photoshop better because I can hide this black box that you're seeing, which is basically saying we have this type selected. But if I go ahead and click in here, and I'm going to go ahead and select that, this is my list of fonts up here. And that's where you see the blue box. It's Myriad Pro is the font that's currently being selected. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just click on my down arrow. And what you can see is it's going to go through all the fonts that I have loaded in my system. So obviously this will be different for you depending on what you have. And gives you a good chance of good way of seeing that there are definitely some fonts that are better than others. If I wanted to also, and I knew right away, like I have this font I like called Solomon that I bought, I could go ahead and just start typing it. You can see it'll start immediately coming up. So it's another shortcut. Let's do it as that. And I'll just make it down a little bit. Okay. We're going to zoom in on it just so you can see what I'm talking about for that. Okay. All right. So right now, this is what we call editable text, meaning that at any time I can change it. So all I have to do is select it, and we can say change it to headline. We'll just change it to the one word. Double click on this so you can see. And now I'll just go ahead and zoom in on it. If you go ahead and take your magnifying tool and just click and draw a box over it, it will magnify into the area that you want to be specifically tuned into. So like this case. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it. And it's selected. You can tell it's got this blue underline. I hope you can see it going through it. And I'll show you where it is in here, even though I used the shortcut for it. But it's type, and it is create outlines. So now if I go ahead to my type tool and try and do this, you can see it's not going to let me. I mean, I can start typing something new. I could change this to headline and so forth. But what the point of this is that now this is no longer type, this is a shape. And we can treat it as such. We can add a pattern, you know, we could add gradients, we can do whatever we want, and a variety of other things that Illustrator is great for. Number one thing, if you do have any Illustrator experience, want to go further, make sure you look up the appearance. Playing with appearance in Illustrator is a lot of fun. You can add multiple strokes, fills, the whole gamut. Gradients is just, right now I have it selected. So it's kind of think of it as a, let me just zoom in on it a little bit more. So each of these now is actually a shape, and we could even break this up. It's grouped together as one shape. If we went here though, actually, and said object ungroup, you can see that now I can have these guys in all different things. So we can make this one. All I did is, let me drag it out here. So there are swatches in Illustrator. And in fact, what I love about Illustrator is you can actually go ahead and look for specific things like, such as show gradient swatches. These are the few piddly ones that they give you with it to start with. But we go to Open Swatch Library and we go, I showed you this before, gradients. Look at all the choices we have again. I don't think shapes are actually subject to copyright. So depending on what you do with it, technically, you won't need, if you use a font and you don't outline it, when it's gone to the printer's going to need to have that font to print it. But if something has been created in outlines, you're not going to need the font, because now we're not talking about it being a font, we're talking about it being a shape. But the legalities of it are technically that you're really not supposed to do that. And we'll go back to that same slide so you can see again what I'm saying. Anyway, anybody have a thing? Let's try gems and jewels. I've never tried that. So look at how many we have here. So we can go ahead here, and we can go here. And we can just, this is like a middle one. So some pretty nice stuff to play with and pretty easily. So you can end up doing some pretty good effects here. Yeah, that's just lovely, isn't it? Yeah, the main thing, but you get the idea of what I'm trying to tell you for it. So yeah, wish I had time to show you the appearance thing because it is just so great. But we have a lot to cover, so I'm gonna have to go back to the other one. If we have time to play, we'll come back. But that's just the deal now. These are all shapes. And I'll show you how there really are shapes. Is like right now, here's this letter. We could go ahead and we could just take one of the points, because that's what Illustrator is about. And you can see we could start, really messing around with this stuff. So that's where the difference is. Does that make sense? Does everybody get that? Cool. So let's go back to this now. This is what I'm talking about here. In some way, yes, you are, but you really supposedly you have to write, still have purchase a license to the font that you're using. And you have to personally create the outline, because the actual outlining of the typeface. Oh, and by the way, the font that I did just show you, that Solomon one, I did actually buy. I do buy fonts. I buy them every time that they're discounted and offered through that site that I mentioned. Seems like many moons again. I hope I mentioned it. The mightydeals.com, which I call the Groupon for graphic designers. So anyway, it says you have to personally create the outline, because the actual outlining of the typeface, and that's what I was saying, the combination of points you select to imitate the shape of the type is copyrighted and belongs to the person who created it. Very, very interesting. There's so many technical things here. So if I can outline a font, why do I need to worry about licensing? You as a user have to purchase a license to the font in question to use in your design and to outline it. That's what you're supposed to do. Different fonts have different licenses with different rules, so you always have to check and see how you're allowed to use a given font, and I'm going to tell you how you would do that. And that's this. So standing for End User License Agreement, EULA, that's the way I pronounce it, is the license between the licensor and the purchaser of a font. So you agree to it when you purchase the font. So again, it's probably a thing like, I'm guessing most people don't read it, just like, I don't know about you guys, but I never read the update when I update iTunes or any of those other things. I'm not going through all that legal stuff, but technically we're supposed to. So that's what the deal is about this. So what to ask about the font you're using? You check that site, and here's what you want to know. You want to know, is this font legal to use in the context in which you're working? Are you able to use it on the website? Your website? Are you able to send it off to the printer? Those kind of things. That's like what I mean by context. Can you use the font commercially? Can you use it in logo, a print, web design? Can you make modifications to the font? Can I edit the fonts in question? Some fonts can be modified, some not. Can I pass the font on to the client? Because if a client is going to be able to open up your work and you haven't outlined the font, it's going to come up that it's missing on their computer. So the answer is most likely no, but you can always double check to see if you're allowed to share the font with your client. Again, gray area. I'm telling you the legal stuff, but I'm not necessarily saying that is the way it works out there, but this is the way it's supposed to work. And this all seems like a lot of work, but in the end, if you collect the set of fonts for which you've done the legal research, you're going to save both yourself and your client a lot of time and worry by knowing that you're using the type properly. Because you'd be surprised, every once in a while there are, like I said, some, if you do some research on it, there's some very interesting lawsuits that come out of illegally used fonts or images. So here are some great, just, places to go to check them out. So some dependable font size for you to research on your own. So that's why I have it on here. Font Squirrel. Let me know if anybody's ever heard of these. The Font, My Fonts, Font Shop. Oh, and by the way, I also like to mention this has helped me out a lot. Uh, if you've ever have, and this will come up occasionally too, like a client will show you something and go, "Oh my God, I love the font in that's used there. Could we use that font?" And you might want to you want to know what it is. I mean, because it's just in a printed piece. If you could just like zoom in and just collect, do a sample of that type and save it as a JPEG, you can upload it to a site called What the Font. And what that tries to do is it looks at the what you've uploaded and tries to match it against fonts that are out there. So it's come in handy a couple of times. It's a great thing if you want to go through it. It's called What the Font. All right, let's go into more of the web, at least an introduction to it. So, and actually, just hold on a second for me. Okay. All right, so a domain name. If you've ever wondered, just about what the heck, I don't know how many of you have like the web experience, so I need to go over at least some of the basics about this. So, if you've ever wondered about registering a domain, and you do have one, you've probably figured it out, but just in case, registering a domain name gets you an official address for your website on the World Wide Web. And with this official address, can't see me, but I'm doing quotes, the rest of the web can find you. So like your home address is unique in the real world, there also can't be any duplicate addresses on the internet, otherwise no one would know where to go. So in other words, domain names are unique addresses on the web. And the cost of registering a domain name ranges from less than $10 US to about $30 per year. You can register a domain name from like 1 to 10 years. And in case you're wondering why you have to pay for one, it's because there is a central address book of all the world's domain names, and there's a cost to keep it updated. So what I mean by central address book is that when you type in a website name, your browser starts asking servers where that particular domain name resides, and the servers are able to tell the browsers where to go by referring to this giant address book. Hopefully that puts it in some more simpler terms. But anyway, in basic terms, domain name gives the name that you want to give your website, and you have to pay an annual fee to a registrar for the rights to use that name. And a lot of that's that GoDaddy. I'm sure everybody's seen GoDaddy, or in some ways, even if you haven't used it. And then there's this term, hosting, website hosting. Because once you get the domain name, you're going to do, this is like your next step. And it's, when I was talking about servers, what the deal is that really you need to rent space on a server so it can serve your website to the world. And this is often called hosting. That's what that's about. Companies that provide the service are often called host or hosting companies. And after you've registered your domain, all you need to do is contact the hosting company and tell them your domain name, and they'll guide you through the process. This is all the stuff, like, for me in the beginning, it made me crazy. I don't know. But everybody has their thing. A web host is basically a company that has many computers connected. And when your web pages are placed in their computers, that means everybody in the world will be able to connect to it and see all your wonderful stuff. So what about designing web pages? Well, after you get that, obviously the domain name and the host, the next step is to actually design the website itself. And I've used this term before too, but it's WYSIWYG is what you see is what you get. Just in case you need clarification on that. And web editor to do that. And there are many commercial and free web editors around. If you have the Creative Suite, then you have access to one of the best and well-known ones in the industry, Dreamweaver. Has any of you guys played with Dreamweaver? It's that one also kind of hurt my head in the beginning, but I think it's getting better. Yeah, it's kind of tough. And then once you know it and you're comfortable with it, you really kind of love it. But you have to reach that point of working with it. The other thing that's out there now that's even easier, and that's also an Adobe product. So if you do have access and you do pay that fee to get the Creative Suite, the CC, you have Adobe Muse, and Adobe Muse is a lot easier. And I think I have that in here as well. I'll mention that again probably. So here are some design tips because it is a little bit, it's different. Designing for the web versus for print. So you would think appearance is the most important issue in terms of, I mean, like just overall like having fun with the design. But actually the most important issue is really whether or not it will appeal to your user. So who are you designing for? So the look and feel of your website is important for more than just displaying information, but you're displaying it in a manner so that it reaches your intended target audience by appealing to them in a fashion they're comfortable with and can easily understand. And hence, that's why I've mentioned that before. But that was also way back in the beginning, talking about jobs in this industry. And one of the things is a UX designer, which is the user experience, talking about that. So here are some of the things to consider. Who is your intended audience? Considerations such as gender and nationality decide colors, animations, graphics, and text appearance. Targeting a website to appeal to a specific nationality requires understanding the culture and how they use information. Hence why I keep going on about that, about knowing about the world around you, not limiting the world. So, and then some cultures respond better to information that is presented in a what we would say is a society-centered format. And what I mean by that is they relate to images that represent power, strength, society, or government. You would, for this case, you would show buildings or landmarks rather than images of people or personal situations. And text would be written so that it appeals to a person's civic pride. On the opposite end of the coin, more democratic societies tend to respond better to information that is written around individuals. So you would typically see pictures of people and products being used by them. And then text or copy should be written to appeal to an individual and their desire to improve their own life rather than how it would benefit society as a whole. So it's very, very interesting. There's so much to think about when you're doing everything. But I don't want and then at the same time, I'm going to tell you, I don't want you to overthink everything either. Is it to a specific gender? I mean, gender comes into play when determining color, layout, pictures, and such. I mean, research shows, for instance, of course, when I would mention this in passing as well, that women prefer bright colors, static pages, and colored typeface, while men actually like dark colors, 3D images, and animation. It was just the color part that I had mentioned before. Men also tend to prefer images that are posed, unlike women who are more influenced by they like more informal pictures, which I found interesting as well because that's actually my favorite. I prefer to take non posed, not. I like more of that just capturing something when, especially when somebody's not aware of it. And are you credible? So just like putting your best face forward when you're making a sale or interviewing for a job, you also want to let visitors to your site know what you care about, know that you do care about your online image, and have invested the time and money to do the right thing. So this makes sense when you consider that most people are reluctant to get involved with fly by night or home businesses because the responsibility factor to the consumer is minimal, if it exists at all. If a visitor feels that you're, one of those kind of people, then they're probably not gonna. You'll probably lose them. Just like that. So again, when I was talking about the user designer, and the reason I also bring this up a lot is because, like I said, um, to keep up with everything and to make sure that I can offer you the best information that I have, I always stay on top of like what kind of, what jobs are like listed out there. When I was, mentioned before about Indeed several times and other sources. And there is a lot for these usability UX designers. When I got hired with the current company that I got hired with, at the same time they had also hired a UX designer. So just shows you it's a lot. So all sites are created for a particular purpose, such as to sell something, offer information, resources, or showcase talents. So think about that too. The idea of, like I said, of using a website as a resume. That's what I'm trying to say. Sorry, resume and a portfolio could be a great way, because a lot of times when you are out there in this business and going through that, they want to see the visual proof of what you can do. So usability of your site is dependent upon that purpose. Can your visitors easily access the information they need so that they can do the stuff that you want them to do? So does your site have information availability? Is the information that your visitors need to make informed decisions available on your site? For example, before they can buy a product, they will want to know more about that product. Um, a brief one-line summary about your product's features may work for your main page, but you're probably going to find that you get more buyers if you could provide a link to a page that gives a detailed list of features for each of your products. Information accessibility. Not only must your information be available to your visitors, it must be easily accessible. So a page that gives a detailed description of your products is not going to help your visitors if they have to work hard at finding it. In fact, my experience is that if visitors have to work at finding something on your site, they're not going to find it. So either put the information right under their noses or put a link to it in that place. Navigation. A good navigational system for your website is crucial. A navigational system is one that, which your visitors can move from one page to another. And think about what you like when you're you're surfing the web. So just if you can access the main page of the site, just navigation buttons need to be somewhere visible for it. And there are a few features to a good navigational system. So if you're using a navigation bar panel, standardize its location on all the pages of your websites. Don't make your visitors feel as though they're embarking on a treasure hunt every time they reach a new page. They're just going to get frustrated. I've learned a lot about this in the past from one of the contract positions that I did. So people spend a lot of time about just these little factors, how big the buttons will be, especially with mobile design, that becomes a big issue as well. So lots of things to think about. So think like a visitor and ask yourself what are the things a visitor might want to know or do when she's on a particular, he or she is on a particular page. This is something you hear a lot about: search engine visibility, SEO, search engine optimization. And that has to do with keywords and different things. That's a little bit more detailed than we go into, but there's plenty of information out there about that. And it's the idea of having the right words, the right, yeah, I guess I would say words, so that when somebody does a search, your site will come up in that search. And then the SEO thing is about the idea of, they say that really it's your you should be in like the first 10 things that come up, because most people aren't going to go look past a certain amount of things when they're doing a search. So you want to be as up there as possible. Wireframing. Wireframing is an important, really important part of the design process, and they come in handy when communicating with clients. What is this is the visual. It's a way for them to visualize your ideas more easily than when you just say, verbally describe them. And wireframing helps clarify exactly what needs to be on different page types of your website. Gives your page layouts a great starting point and a solid foundation. So what is that exactly? Simple or complicated? See, it's just showing the basic thing here. Sometimes it can be just a sketch on some graph paper. I know plenty of people still do that. It's a great way for that. More complicated projects have more complicated wireframes that can be done using software programs. There are a lot of them that can actually do almost like an entire mock-up and going through it. I can actually, using Keynote, which is this thing too, I can simulate how an app works or a website, because I can make it seem like the buttons are actually working and interactive and so forth. So use that as instead of building out a website, it's a good way to give client an idea of how it's going to be. All right, so let's talk about web design, the part that you're really more interested in. So 6 key principles that make a web design look good. Ta-da! Here we go again. But again, balance. It's all about ensuring that your design does not tip to one side or the other. It's like the balance of weight and achieving symmetry or asymmetry. So it's kind of cool that I told you about that in the beginning, because I bring it up again here. So symmetrical design is typically off-center or created with an odd or mismatched number of disparate elements. And when the left and right sides of the design are unequal, it is said to have asymmetrical balance. Okay, so here's just like an example here. So the cross to the right makes up for the added visual weight that the dog provides on the left. And it's small, but it's not really an insignificant detail. So see for yourself, hopefully you can do that while you're looking at your monitors here. Hide the cross with your hand and you can see that we're actually kind of, it's not as effective. Or you can go and look at the site. I believe it's subtraction. It'd be so cute. So grid. So the grids are a series of the horizontal and vertical rulers that help you compartmentalize a design. Gives you some structure. I can't. It's really complex stuff, but I want you to, definitely look into this further, especially if you are going to go the route of like web design. So look up the rule of thirds and the golden ratio. Really will help you if you're doing a web design. Think of columns. Columns improve readability, making a page's content easier to absorb. So while this design is, not maybe visually impressive in itself, Has some clear, strict structuring of elements to make it easier on the eye. So the left column is roughly twice the size of the right sidebar, which just makes sense, and it's just something to think about when you're creating your own design. So it's not that it's lovely, but it's, considered very user friendly. And color, I mentioned it for the zillionth time, I guess, right? But important thing, pick 2 or 3 base colors at most for your design, and then use tints, which are lighter, mixed with white, and shades, which are darker, mixed with black. And use them as your base color and expand from there. The cooler. Every color sends out a message. It's up to you to get the message right. Don't forget the whole thing with color being important. Color important on your website too. So this place, this communication.com, it's mainly monochromatic, really. So that's what's kind of cool about it, which was that thing I brought up about just tints and shades of a single color. So that's what they've chosen to do here for this site. So your use of graphics. You know what? It's basically they add to the visual message and they try to make them go well and fit the style that you're going for. For some reason, the slide always messes up on me. Typography. So here's another great thing for you to research further if you are going to go this route, and that's CSS3 and using @fontface. And what @fontface lets people do is, it used to be actually that you were very, very limited in what type you could actually use for a website, because it was very dependent. Not everybody had a lot of fonts. But what happens with this @fontface means is that you can use a whole bunch of fonts. You have a whole world of them, and people who are your viewers don't necessarily have to have those fonts on their machine. It's a whole different way of doing this. So research that, and you'll find out more about what this is. It's really cool. I love CSS3 and HTML5. It's makes web design a lot more simpler and a lot more fun. It's a lot more creative things to be done. So things to think about with text on the web are contrast, color, readability, and size. Black text on a white background is easiest to read because it provides the most contrast when we're talking about that. And they say sans serif fonts have been proven to be more easily read online in body copy because serifs make it tougher for the eye to follow, and the opposite is true for printed text. So white space or negative space has to do with what's not there. And there's a point that I bring up a lot, but like measure and letting white space gives text some breathing room and spatial peace. And I get to throw in another one of my, you can see 2 different things. So a website needs to have connection between unity and consistency. And these are broad attributes that basically mean design should be consistent in use of colors, in your range of fonts, with its icons, etc. Unity refers to how the different elements in the design interact and fit together. Does everything contribute to one unified message? And all the elements need to come together. Balance, grid, colors, graphics, type, white space, they need to connect. So it's a hard concept to teach. You'll have to learn it by putting it into practice. Hopefully, if you are out there building websites, you'll understand that more going through. All right, so images for the web. Ping, PNG, I always call them pings. I'm not going through that. If you've ever seen this, it's like these are great if you do have a graphic that you want a transparent background. That's what they're good for. And that's actually what that checkerboard is. If you work in like Photoshop and you take out the background, like say those dice were on a white background, we got rid of the white, then we would have the checkerboard behind it to show that it's representing transparency. It's considered a raster format that supports lossless data compression. And that's important for the fact that it means that it will save that image as a smaller size, but without you losing the quality. And that's important into a website because the higher you don't want to have, and I'll be talking about this again, but you don't want to have really high res images on your website because it takes a long time for a website to load. And if somebody's going to wait a while for your images to load, you might lose them and they're gone. So this supports many color workspaces like I was talking about. That's what I was saying, talking about RGB, CMYK, those are color workspaces. CMYK, you can't use CMYK for these files, but then you really only use these files for web. You wouldn't send a PNG off to a printer. So like I said, good for transparency. JPEG, sure everybody knows that, but what's the deal with that? This is actually, why would you use this format over another? JPEGs are good for photographic images, bad for images that have rasterized text and flat color logos. We'll talk about that. Should be safe for web and the lowest quality you can get away with without losing quality. There is a part of Photoshop where you can do that, save for web, and it allows you to take your original image and you play with it and play with it, and you have to, finesse it and know what you're looking for so that you can get it to be the lowest, but that it still looks good. Not looking good was, if you can remember back to my image of the lotions. So you don't want something to end up looking like that. It's not really very clear. It's not really high quality. I'm not trying to sacrifice one for the other. So the reason for saving a JPEG down is that it cuts down on the loading time for the web page. So the lower the resolution, the better when it comes to this. GIF, looked it up, although people pronounce it both ways. You'll hear GIF, GIF. That's these guys. So it's good for graphics with areas of flat color and simple animations. It's bad for photographic images. And it remains popular for 3 reasons. It's very space efficient, generating small file sizes thanks to its lossless compression algorithms. It has the ability to generate a color table only as big as required by the image. And it's one of the most reliable ways to animate simple images, like the little tool guys there. This is another great thing for web images, an image sprite. And that is, it's a collection of images put into a single image. As I was saying, a web page with many images can take a long time to load and generates multiple server requests. This is a lot of the behind the scenes thing that's going on, but it's actually very important because using image requests will reduce the number of server requests and save bandwidth. And again, it all has to do with how quickly are they going to see your page, how quickly are they going to see these images. And look at these things here at the bottom. This is an example of a sprite here. So it'd be a case of, you would just have this one image, but at any given time, it's only going to be showing like what's in the square. So see, like there's a black square around just the mail, like the email symbol there. See, and as it's going, that's what it's based on. It uses coordinates. If anybody was good in algebra, this stuff all comes in handy when you're doing like a lot of the web design because you need to know the X and Y coordinates. Social media. You can't not talk about social media. It's another thing that I noticed out there. It's another thing that I was asked a lot. And like I said, I've been on a lot of different interviews. I actually started to enjoy it because at first you're like, which is probably a good way to approach it. But one of the things was always, how well could you do social media? What could you do to expand their social media presence? So we got to start with the biggie, Facebook. Facebook ads. You're now able to put calls to action and your website or address information, your Facebook cover photo, but there are still some text restrictions. So Facebook's rules state that our cover photos may not include more than 20% text. Previous restrictions that were in place were removed, like no calls to action, no websites, no address information. You used to not be able to do that. And the 20% text policy doesn't apply to pictures of products that include text on the actual product. I'll show you more of a visual image of that. So let's look at some visual examples of people using this for more of a web thing. So the first one, this Mari Smith cover photo does apply the fact that the image of the Facebook marketing report shown as a product photo. So, and therefore it's not included in the 20% text allowance. So there's some text on the book. That's not part of the deal. You might want to just keep things simple with an engaging picture as usual. So just like anywhere else, a good strong visual. So the Harvard Business Review chose an artistic shot from their current magazine. Make sure you caption the photo to tell more about it and possibly include a link to your website, wherever it is that you want to drive traffic to. I like the Austin one. I also really like Austin, so that could be it too. But find your happy place on Austin's #1 home search website, and there's the website. If your business revolves around your website, have it on your cover photo. So they have a simple, clean cover photo with their website address stands out. And then we have the lawyers.com one, which actually, this may actually be outside the 20% rule, but it's cool. It could actually, probably be made more compliant with some shifting of text. I'm not sure who's out there looking at it, but you never know. They always, this lawyers.com, they always upload a new cover photo that features their latest blog post. So when you click on the picture, you'll get a link to the blog post in the description. So it's a great way to showcase new talent, new content. And this is what I was saying about before, Muse. And there's a thing called long scrolling sites. It's one site is the New York Times Snowfall Project, which uses advanced HTML and CSS things to tell stories. Let's see, hopefully it will take us to it. Yay. So that's the other thing, by the way, in these presentations, the links actually will work. If you see it on the hand, it'll take you to it. But just check this out. It's just fascinating to me. It's just so, I love it. Like it's faded, things are faded until like you get to it, and then it comes back in here. And just start loading then. Pretty amazing. Just scrolling down. Pretty cool. That's a fairly current trend going on in that. All right. So like I said, it's not always all just about, the technical skills. There's a lot of other things. So here's the thing, the 12 habits of highly successful designers. I've got a lot of different things of this if we have time to go through, but multitasking. So if you end up working for a design firm, you'll probably be working on 5 to 10 projects at once, depending on the size, sometimes more. You'll be expected to keep up with what each client needs. And you're going to need to figure out how to solve their problems with your designs, and you'll need to do it pretty quickly, because a lot of times you won't just have the luxury of time. So, organization. You'll need to have a system for keeping track of everything. You'll have to keep each client's records in a certain place, whether you have an online filing system or a physical cabinet for their projects, invoices, releases, and other materials. A checklist method might be a good way to go, and there are several list apps that help you keep things organized. Prioritization. Need to determine what tasks are most important and should be done first, and then you do those. So you shouldn't be working on something that's due next week when you have things that are due at the end of the day. I mean, it's kind of common sense, but knock out all the main tasks of the day, and then you can work your way down through all the rest of the tasks in the order of the priority. Time management, that's what I said. Plan a project before starting. Consider the problem at hand instead of just jumping in and moving things around the page. This is really where a lot of people get hung up because time management is really one of the hardest things to handle when designing anything. In reality, I mean, it takes as long as it takes. That's it. You're not going to cut a project short and hand someone a design that looks like garbage, but because you won't be in business long. However, you need to be aware of the time and how long it takes and when your client is expecting to get it from you. Minimize distractions. So in a time of Facebook and texting, email, and more, you have to learn to filter and tune everything else so you can concentrate. Probably easier said than done. Follow up. Yeah, if you rely on people getting back to you, you're going to be very, very disappointed. People need to know also though that you want the work, but don't hound them constantly or turn them off. I'm talking really in terms of here probably freelancers, because there's a lot of freelancers, people who do that. So it's like that's the other fun thing. I think that's probably the drawbacks about that a lot of people don't like. It's actually handling the business end of it. You know, and even the sales part of like actually going out and soliciting clients. Don't look desperate, just look professional. Work under pressure. Yeah, that could be pretty much it. Is that kind of the way you feel today, Erica? Just teasing on that. Graphic design is a deadline-oriented business. Deadlines can mean pressure to get things done. And if you like pressure, a challenge, or problem solving, if you like pressure, or challenge, or problem solving, then this is the field for you. Use social media less. So it's good to stay informed, like I keep saying, but don't spend hours on articles and tweets. Set yourself a time limit, like say 30 minutes a day, because it's so easy for time to get way past you. Budget your money. So this is again, if you are going to go on your own, which a lot of people like to do, who have come through here have been like, be practical. Spend your money on what you need. Don't spend it on things that you don't. There'll be going to be busy times where you won't even be able to turn around without getting a new project, and there will be times where you wonder how long you can survive on, ramen noodles. It doesn't have to be this way though. If you learn to, budget your money well, it's freelance can be a very, very good field. So when you're making the money, put some of it away. You don't need a second laptop. You don't need to spend hundreds of dollars upgrading from an iPhone to the latest iPhone. So they charge a lot now. I think it's like $300 for a new phone, even with a contract. Highly successful designers are practical with their money. So I have some very, very successful freelance design friends. Focus on the design and not the software. Meaning, you need Photoshop and Illustrator to help you create your designs, but you also need to understand what good design is before you put them to use. Can't stress this one enough. So it's all about getting out there, getting your name out there. You can't just sit at your desk and hope that work comes to you. You need to get out there and meet people, especially if you want to, like I said, do freelance work. You hear the term all the time, and you got to do it. I've mentioned it before. There are a variety of meetup groups out there. Start with one that interests you. Take advantage of LinkedIn. Like I said, I've had jobs come to me through LinkedIn. So what's the word? It's network. Networking, networking. Can't stress it enough. It's helped me immensely. Strive to improve. So highly successful designers are always one step ahead of you. Can always improve. That's what I'm saying. I don't care who you are. I don't care how long you've been doing this. There's always room for improvement. Always something new that you can learn. The more you know, the more you're worth. All right, some more expert advice. More for me. So sweat the details. You're a professional communicator. Act like one. So carefully edit everything you publish: resumes, social media, email, blog posts, letters, text messages, everything. Get a copy of the Chicago Manual of Style and keep it handy. It's one of the things you put in the. I need to add that to my what to do now thing. Most potential employers and clients don't appreciate text shorthand, so don't use it. Play nice. People you work with and for will make your blood boil from time to time. Whenever possible, be a pro. Take the high road. Again, I'm sure it's easier said than done, but over time you can do that. And I'm a good example of that because it was a lot different, and certainly a lot more vocal when I was in my 20s. So I had to really, really learn how to do this, and it can be done. Avoid burning bridges as people change jobs more often than they did a generation ago. So your paths may cross again in a much different situation, and having a good working history together will make rehiring you easy. I can't stress the small world thing enough when it comes to the design community. It really is. Apply this to your online persona as well. Anonymous jabs are petty. Be better than that. Like I said, if you've seen a lot of I'm sure everybody has watched a lot of YouTube videos, and some of the stuff that people just write, it's like, wow. Is it because we can't see you that you have to be that cruel? Don't fear type. Master it. So here's some of that with some good type books for your collection. The Elements of Typographic Style by Robert Brinkhurst, Thinking with Type by Ellen Lupton, and Grid Systems and Graphic Design by Joseph Muller-Brockman are cover-to-cover must-reads. These are just great things. Free fonts from the internet are not really good. Avoid them. That's what a lot of people say. I have to say that I don't necessarily agree with that one as much. But in general, I guess it's probably true. Define your audience. Who are you speaking to and what is the objective? If you can't definitively answer both of these questions about a project you're about to start working on, go back to the drawing board. So graphic design is simply a plan that visually articulates a message. Make sure you have the message and its intended viewer sorted out before you start. Communicate with purpose. Don't just make eye candy. Has anybody read the 20 things in the book? The 20 particular thing that I mentioned, like if you don't do anything else in the book, to read those. If you, okay, good, because a lot of this is a lot from that as well, and hopefully we'll have some time to go over those because I have that. Yay, you're all good. So it's worth going over and maybe discussing if we can hopefully get to that. Be yourself. Be confident in yourself as an author, designer, photographer, creative, whatever you're going to do. Be yourself. Don't work in a particular personal style. Don't work in a particular personal style. Rather, develop a personal approach to your creative work. It's a lot of people tend to think that just the way artists, just actual fine artists have their own style, but it's not really what you should be doing with this. It's not about the style, because your commission work should never be about you. It can certainly reveal your hand as the designer, and as your work becomes more well known, hopefully you'll get hired for that. But you can't just say, hey, this is my style, that's what I'm going to do. For your personal work, don't be afraid to tell your story. No one else is going to do it for you. So you really do have to promote yourself as well. Learn to say no. That's another toughie. Some of your best design business decisions will ultimately be saying no to clients or projects. I've had that happen as well. I knew I had taken on too much. You should really, again, paying attention to that. How much do you have to do and what's on deadline and organization and prioritization. And I took on something that I probably hadn't done before and I didn't realize how long it was going to take me. So if I had just said no, I would have been a lot happier and it would have been a better thing. Unfortunately, it usually takes a few disasters to gain that experience to know when to walk away from an impending train wreck. So you live and learn, as they say. Carefully measure the upsides of any project against the downsides, such as being treated like a vendor and ongoing scope creep, where the volume of what you're expected to deliver keeps expanding, while the subject and the schedule and the budget don't. I think I've mentioned that before too. I'm very upfront with, how much my cost is and what it's going to include, including the fact of, like, say, 3 revisions. After that, if you want more revisions, it's going to cost this much extra. A lot of people aren't comfortable with things like that, but I have found much more success in being that direct up front and doing that. And if they're not interested, oh well, I've learned to walk away. So collect and share everything. Find and save relevant and interesting things and pass them along to your friends, coworkers, followers, clients. Use the web and social media to share your own photos and work as well as the work of others you find engaging. So again, that's part of that whole being involved. Be funny, serious, irreverent, businesslike, self-promotional, curatorial, whatever. Just be yourself. Whatever one of these adjectives hopefully fits you. For everyday inspiration, surround your workplace with the design ephemera that you collect. Or in my case, it's toys, because I just think toys are cool. So I haven't outgrown them, and that's what I'm surrounded by. Be a design author, develop ideas, write them down, edit them, share them, elicit a response. Poof, you're a design author. Read design blogs, participate in discussions, have an opinion. If you find yourself spending hours a week contributing to other designers' blogs, you might want to consider starting your own. And the cost and effort for that are minimal, and the opportunities are diverse, and there's a lot of great WordPress, websites out there that can help make that easier. Build your book. So find the best local art organization with the worst visual brand identity or website, make a trade. They get some great design work, you get creative control, and some real world projects in your books so that, other potential clients will start recognizing the names and looking at it. Or whether or not you go for, actually to get hired. Make sure of this, again, again, a lot of this stuff is common sense, but you'd be amazed at how many people just don't seem to actually pay attention to this. So make sure you manage your online profiles carefully and be sure to keep all your listings accurate, consistent, emotionally professional. You can count on coworkers, potential employers, and clients to Google you, so make sure that what they find won't be too incriminating and sink your chances for that new job or project. And because employers read social media posts too, especially ones that include their proper names, so use common sense. Research and destroy. You'll never know as much about your clients' businesses as they do, but part of our jobs as designers is to try. Learn as much as you possibly can at the inception of a project about your client's business space, their goals, their competition, their history. Dedicate a half or a full day download session, ask a lot of questions, and then just shut up and listen. Observe trends, avoid them. So keep current on the state of our industry by reading books, magazines, blogs, attending conferences, all the things I've been saying. RSS feeds will allow you to quickly skim design and culture related content. Avoid design annuals as a source of inspiration, as they're a record of what's already been done. But, there's still that thing of taking something that you like and maybe redoing it, making it your own, that stealing. I'm using quotes, I know you can't see me. Study the works of others to understand and not to duplicate it. Learn to articulate well your ideas in the design process in a client meeting. The paper matters. Print is not dead. So the beauty and the tactility, being able to touch a well-printed piece on quality paper cannot be appreciated or replicated on the screen, a tablet, or a mobile device. Paper manufacturers, merchants, and printers are doing a terrific job of helping designers make sustainable paper choices to minimize the impact on our environment. Lots more printers today are so much more green conscious. So that's all good. Content's still king. So emphasis on the message with design as a plan for delivering it. And the most effective and memorable visual communications almost always has the right mix of form and content regardless of the medium. Good design can engage a viewer, but interesting content will keep them reading and thinking past the headline. So again, this is what I was saying about the, style, like having your own personal style. Like Picasso, he has his blue and rose periods, George O'Keeffe, whatever, flowers and animal bones. The difference between them and you, they were artists solving their own personal communication problems. We're designers, primarily tasked with solving the communication problems of others. So using one singular style or direction for multiple clients or projects will rarely be successful, and in retrospect will look one-dimensional. Spec work. Speculative work or spec work is a request by a potential client for an uncompensated creative and design work at the inception of a project. So it's kind of interesting because that'll happen a lot too. And then there's also the idea of a lot of agencies will compete. You can end up doing all this work just to gain a client. So you have to weigh the value of what that's going to cost you in time and effort. AIGA ARG has great resources for dealing with spec work, including a sample letter that you can personalize and send to clients explaining why their request is unappreciated. This is something we have to check out. And I need to find out, last week I got, it's within the past couple of weeks, when I was talking about the meetups.com, I know that there's, I believe it's actually even a new chapter for Dallas for this organization. So I'll probably send it to you in an email. I might be, oh, by the way, I might be out of communication a little bit because of the fact that actually right after this class is over, I have to take my computer over to the Apple Store. I have 1 pixel of lines going through it that just, burnt out. And I don't know about you, but that kind of thing just makes me crazy because it's all you focus on is the one little line of pixels. So anyway, otherwise, usually I would hang out and answer questions. So become indispensable. What are you really good at? Contrast that to the skill sets that could help you advance at the workplace. Could your studio benefit from having an in-house photographer, web programmer, video editor, screen printer? I saw the writing on the wall when I was doing all the print ads for the Dallas Morning News, and then we started to see that the web was becoming much more important. So, okay, what's the UGG for, Paul? Because I see the UGG and I'm not sure what you're relating it to. Was there something on screen? Missing a pixel. Okay, thanks. Sorry. Yeah. It's insane. It's just a thin line going right across it. So, and it's not even a year old, the computer, so whatever. It's covered. That's all that matters. All right. So follow your bliss. Get the additional training you need to expand your talents and ultimately your role at work. So at the time, now it's not really a practical thing, but at the time, for me, it meant learning Flash. And that got me a lot further. So there were only 5 of us who can do it out of a department of a lot. So here we go. Here's the information for it. It's the Professional Association for Design. It represents more than 21,000 professionals, educators, and students with 65 local chapters. Supports the exchange of design ideas and information, research, innovative programming, makes you part of the design community. So again, I believe it should work. But yeah. Build relationships, build personal relationships with everyone you work with, not just your clients. So get to know your delivery people, paper merchants, printer reps, local politicians, business leaders, chamber of commerce events, network, meet people. Get on people's radar screens. They'll be impressed with your well-designed business cards that prominently feature your website address. So we're getting ahead, but just stuff to think about. I had fun with mine. I had really a lot of fun when I designed my own as a website, as a resume, and just also I did it from I want to say like scratch. I did it from the basics of coding just because I thought it'd be fun and I wanted to see if I could do it. And I had a certain design to it. It's not up anymore. I mean, I could show it to you, but it's not really all that important because I still have it in Dreamweaver. It's just not active. And then what I did is I had my business cards match the design of the website, just so it all tied in, that kind of thing. Seek criticism, accept praise. So, as a designer, listening to your ideas being questioned and your hard work being ripped apart, it's not usually a lot of fun. So, but however painful, though, constructive criticism of your design work is the most effective way to grow as a visual communicator. So, build the network of friends, coworkers, and mentors you can use to collect feedback on your work. Not online sites necessarily, because like I said, with when people are anonymous sometimes on those sites, they just tend to be cruel for the sake of being cruel. You can tell that bothers me. Never compromise. Once you build strong relationships with everyone you work with, strategically use them to get what you want. Convince your clients to use the offset printers or web developers you know that value design and will actively work with you on the final quality of your projects. So we work too hard as designers to accept compromise at any stage of a job, especially when it can usually be avoided with proactive planning. Timelines that detail every step of a project and outline responsibilities for everyone involved are required to accomplish this. So know your history. Learn as much as you possibly can about the history of graphic design, its movements, its terminology, its important figures. I've heard Paul Rand actually mentioned a couple of times. I had him in a quote. The guy who, well, probably didn't get to see it, but for those of you who I was playing it for who were online early, it was a promotional video. He mentions Paul Rand actually in that too, because he's one of these famous, well-known graphic designers. Study typefaces and their designers. Share with your clients the significance and history of the particular typefaces you've chosen for their products. In addition to being a go-to design resource, this knowledge will help you position you as a trusted advisor moving forward. So they pick up on that confidence when you believe in what you're doing, which hopefully you will. Value your work. A common mistake designers make early in their careers is undervaluing their work in the marketplace. The best design jobs aren't always awarded to the low bidder. Even a client with the smallest budget often values work experience and compatibility over price. So set an hourly rate for your services. Take a close look at the number of hours a job will take to accomplish, including revisions. And your estimate is simply your rate multiplied by the hours. That's usually a good way to do it for people just starting out because they wonder, what do I do? Make sure you have a firm understanding of the entire scope of your work you're providing an estimate for. Like I said, there are really try to look at that, because there are times that people get caught up. They don't realize how much time something actually is going to take, how many revisions are going to be involved. So once you get comfortable with this, make mistakes. Take a measured break from your comfort zone. Experiment with an approach you've never tried before. Force yourself to take chances with form. Use a different technique or medium with text and image to create work you're unfamiliar and uncomfortable with. Save and display your best pieces, a reminder to think differently. Keep a sketchbook. You don't need to be prolific at drawing to benefit from keeping a small book in your bag or back pocket. And I'm one who could tell you that, because as I started out telling you, I can barely draw stick figures. Ideas tend to arrive at the strangest times, and being able to record them on the spot will help you remember them later. And when you fill a book, date, number, and shelve it. Soon your bookcase will be a library of your best thoughts and ideas. Because that's actually one of my biggest things too. The reason I started doing that is, and now there are like apps that you can even do, right? That could record this stuff, or whether or not it's, in the written word or orally, just having somewhere where you keep your ideas. It's like, I'll get, did anybody have that? You get up in the middle of the night and you just like, you have this great idea, and then it's like, you wake up the next day and it's like, I don't remember what it was. So, you want to make sure you always keep your ideas going, because you never know, even if it might not be something you use for the current project you're working on, it might be great for something else later on. And you're like, what was that again? So your computer is a tool. 20 years ago, many people in this industry were sure that desktop publishing would mark the end of professional graphic design as we knew it. They confused the convenience of just the new technology with the skill and passion required to design with it. Take a good look at your design methodology and the role technology plays in your work. Can you select shutdown and still be an effective visual communicator? Practice that. Yeah, it's very interesting that I've come across that. Some people who, in the marketing field, who just were not patient and couldn't wait long enough for a graphic designer to turn around their work, so they just took it upon themselves to create their own works of art, and it gets interesting. So it's not that anybody can just do this. So stay inspired. Summing up the ideas we've discussed. Sorry. Keep current about where design is going. Keep a resource inspiration file. Keep a journal or sketchbook. Join design-related communities. Understand the economy and culture of Dallas and the city, whatever city you live in. Stay relevant and clear. Read business and design journals. All right, let's review some of the stuff here. And like I said, it's a lot of different things that I'm going to review of we're going through. These are things that are related to things that will be covered if you are taking a test. So, what is a graphic designer? The reason I picked these particular things should be a hint to you. A graphic designer wears many hats, but here are two important defining characteristics. Needs to deal with clients and other designers, needs to be a good communicator. What does your design need to do? Are there issues? A graphic designer needs to solve problems. How do you choose a typeface? Going about choosing a typeface. Typefaces, fonts, again, I'm using that interchangeably. There are some discrete differences. Are one of a designer's most important elements. They're important for setting a mood. There are two types of fonts, serif and sans serif. This presentation used a serif font because it's got the little serifs, I guess is what they are there. Type can be used as a design element, like the one on this page, right? The I Love Typography. And it can be created in all the Adobe programs. And this question's come up about that before too, like why are there so many, and if I am limited for times, how am I going to know about, which one do I decide to do? Why do I need to have that? And if I really still think it comes down, especially for the most part, for three of them, because you can still do web design and print design and a variety of design within them, but it would be good to have Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop, and InDesign. If you think you're never going to do catalogs, if you think you're never going to do any big thing projects, you know what, it still comes in handy. I use InDesign every single day. I will show one bias here, and I don't mean to insult anybody who might love this program, but having to work in Microsoft Word makes me absolutely crazy because some of the things that program does, I don't find it as intuitive. Once you use InDesign and you see the difference, you'd understand why Microsoft Word makes me so crazy. So, but I can't really avoid it because that's the program that most people use. And so, hence, if I'm going to pass along something that I know somebody needs to change, it's going to have to be in Microsoft Word, not a PDF that I've made of something from InDesign, as much as I really want to do that. So, we'll go back into that. Glyphs, PC character map. Check Adobe Illustrator for glyphs under the type menu. This could be fun with that. Glyphs show symbols. Symbols can be great for creating logos. Illustrator is one of the more popular programs for creating logos. A little bit of a hint there too. Let's go through that. Did I show you guys the glyphs thing? Do you remember that in Illustrator? Because it's a pretty cool thing. I'll show it to you just in case. Just take a review. Since I had Illustrator open anyway. So this is just a really convenient thing too. Actually, let's write that. So I just like this font. I need Pick'em, so go ahead and start typing it. P-I-C-K, there we go. I'm going to take Pick'em Script Pro because I know it has a bunch of different things here. Let's make it a bit bigger. So not all the fonts have the capabilities, and the reason I'm picking this Pick'em Script Pro for my demonstration purposes is to show you this. And under type, glyphs brings up this. And what this is right now is all the characters that make up this font. And when I say all the characters, I mean all the characters and all the special characters. And in a case like this wonderful script font, we can do something like this. Let's make this a capital S. And we can say alternates for the current selection. So I can go ahead and do that. I can go ahead and do that. So it's just kind of fun. It's kind of fun to play with. Especially with a script font like this one. So you can see all the different things it does give you. It will look for ligatures, which are the two characters that are standard, like look good together, like an F and an L is like a ligature. Here, like this. Let me delete it and then just double click on one so you can see. So it's a ligature, that kind of thing. So lots of fun, and also it lets you find special characters as well. So if you don't know where the copyright symbol or any of the other things are, let's go back to a more normal font here. Let's pick that one for now. Entire font. So you can see that I can scroll down here and I can find any of these symbols. It can come in handy at times. So just so you know, something fun to play with in Illustrator. Okay. All right, let's go to this. So this is a little bit of review from the typography, and the thing I picked out of that is 3 terms that people confuse the most. So the difference here, leading is the vertical distance between lines of text. Kerning is the distance between 2 characters, and tracking is the adjustment of space for groups of letters and entire blocks of text. Tracking adjusts the overall character spacing of any text, especially body text and other large blocks of text. 2 file formats to know. And when I say file formats, and I already talked about a bunch of them when I was talking about the PNG and the GIF and the JPEG, here's 2 other really important ones to know. And we have an EPS, which is a vector format. And it is considered the best choice of graphics format for high resolution printing of illustration. So EPS files are created in illustration programs like Adobe Illustrator. And when you bring an Illustrator file into InDesign, using an EPS is usually a good choice. If you bring an EPS or other vector format into Photoshop, it will end up being rasterized. Now, just to clarify that, vector formats, Illustrator, and all the shapes and things that you create in Illustrator, the reason that we say it's vector and going through, it's the format that even no matter how small it is, to how big you blow it up, if you put it on a billboard, it's still going to be crisp, clear, look great. Unlike, like I said, think back to my packaging picture, which was really, really rough. If we kept blowing that up, it would just be even more of a mess. And what it's saying though is, if you did create like some shapes or some other things, and you brought it into Photoshop and then you saved it, you don't have that, and once it becomes part of that Photoshop thing, well, Photoshop is a raster thing, so Photoshop is resolution dependent. So that's what it's trying to say. If you put the EPS into Photoshop. Now it's just like anything else in Photoshop. It becomes an image. And a TIFF is an industry standard for raster or bitmapped images. TIFF files can be saved in a variety of color formats and in various forms of compression. Talking about that saving space thing. TIFFs use lossless compression to maintain image integrity and clarity, and they're also often used for professional photography. And when placing a Photoshop image into InDesign, TIFF is your best choice. Not your only choice, by the way. I'm not saying this is your only choice. Just keep that in mind. These are just best choice. All right. Color, again. CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, black. It's the ideal, color space to use for creating print materials. RGB stands for red, green, blue. It's the ideal color space to use for designing web and mobile publications. And in addition, you might work with spot colors. And if we have time for this, I'm going to actually show you the process of Pantone colors and what I'm talking about that. Because we didn't do that enough. So here are a few instances where you would use spot color. Creating metallic colors. Consistently matching a corporate color and aiding in the transfer of colors from Illustrated and InDesign. And there are a variety of spot color systems. There's like True Match, I believe it's called. There's some other, we can look at it in Illustrator. Pantone is considered the leader of color matching systems. It has the most recognizable name in the industry. So it's almost used interchangeably. And let's go at this for a second. Let me show you this because I do have something on that. All right. Switch over to this for a second. So designing with Pantone colors. Has everybody seen or used this thing that she's holding in the picture? Because those are Pantone swatches. Yay! So good. But we're going to go over it anyway. No, that was great. Aggressive is good. Remember, it's that whole have confidence in what you do. You just proved my point. This I thought was interesting. So here's the kind of how like the workflow of it. It's that, so you're the designer and you're going to be coming up with, you need to create a logo. So what are you going to do? A lot of times logos are spot colors. If you look at most major clients, like something like there's, Walmart, AT&T, places like that, they all have what they call style guides. And they will like mention specifically, like if you're going to use their logo, that you need to make sure that you use whatever particular Pantone colors they have specified. Companies are very, very particular about that. So you look for a Pantone color that you think suits the identity package. When I'm saying identity package, I'm talking about creating a logo. I'm talking about branding. So creating a color, like I said, the logo, the stuff that's going to go on your business card, letterhead, all that stuff is like what I mean by an identity package. The thing that's interesting too that I like to bring out about this is, because people are like, what's the U, the C, the coded, the uncoded? It has to do with all the paper. The coded paper, keeps more of the color. So that's why you can see the more vibrant blue. But so really this is the same blue. It's just how it's going to look depending upon the paper that's used. So uncoated paper is what you're seeing on the left, and coated paper is got the more vibrant blue on the right. All right, so after that, you create your logo. I made this up, by the way, just whatever, just have fun. You design a logo, you create some business cards. Then what happens is the client okays the proofs, so you send it off to the printer, and you specify a request for a particular Pantone color. You would say like this, like PMS 2747 uncoated. Some people use chips, so that's what this is. Those are Pantone chips. And that's really the same thing I'm saying here. Then the printer looks up the color required in the Pantone formula guide and specifies the color on the job ticket. Here's an interesting fact. If you do work with Pantone colors, and as you can see you guys do, Oh yeah, I'll show you that in. I'll show you how you can do it without. How you can do it with the Adobe software. But it's an interesting thing because actually all the Pantone colors are actually made up of 14 colors. Yep. Yep. My presentations are all going to be available, and like I said, the reason I recorded this, so I will be uploading it. I found that the best way I can do this is YouTube, so I'll send you links to the YouTube presentation. But what I was saying before is the reason that I'll probably be a little bit later than that than I would usually do to get to you guys is because I don't know how long they're going to keep my computer for. Hoping it's not going to take that long to just replace the tube, but that's just so you know, that's what happens with that. And I'll also do the PDF version, which, like I said, once you have that, you can click on the links to anything that's linked in it. I have live links to certain websites and things for you to check out. And I'll have some other handouts for you as well. I have a color wheel for you. I have stuff about shapes. I have stuff about typography. I mean, I have a whole library of things to share with you. And in addition, I also have the 20 that special reading from the book because I find that book impossible to read. It's really difficult for me, and I do not have. Um, I have to say, I'm very fortunate. I don't need reading glasses, but I cannot read that book. I cannot see gray type on gray type. It makes me crazy. So I do have a PDF of that if it's easier for you because it's easier for me to read on my iPad that way. So anyway, that's what it is, and I'll show you the 14 colors that make up everything. And then there's also I forgot what it's called, but there's there's a Pantone white, which isn't really white; it's transparent, and that's what's added to make some of those lighter colors you'll see. And I'll show you it in Illustrator. It's easier to demonstrate. Just tell you how it goes. So anyway, the point is then the operator, he mixes the colors needed. Then that ink mix, the printer will create the business cards and stuff. So, but the point of this is just that color consistency is guaranteed. From the design to the client to pre-press to the press room to the final delivery. When we're talking about the Pantone colors, there should be consistency. You should know what you're looking at, what they're looking at. Unlike what I've told you before about, and just remember this too. If you design a logo, if it's on RGB, make sure you print it out so the client can see what it looks like printed because it's going to look different. So let's go back here since it's already opened. And there's a whole world here. We can close this now. And I'm just going to reset it so it's not too messy for you people looking at it. But we'll bring the swatch palette out here. So swatches represents the color, all the different colors. You can say show all swatches. So you can see if I have this guy selected and I keep going here, I could change the color. Even that. The gradients don't work yet, but if I say Command Shift O or Control Shift O if you're a PC person, then now I've created it as a shape, and I can do it's just that again. Anyway, what if I would like this to be a specific Pantone color? Well, that's another wonderful thing about Illustrator. It gives you all these swatch libraries, including all the color books. So what I was showing you with those, in that picture of those swatches of color, which are just physical thing on that, you can do these color books. And here are some of the other names, by the way. True Match, Toyo, but these are the ones that you would mostly use. So let's just go ahead and take Pantone Solid Coated, and I'm going to open it up, and here's another thing that people don't always know, but there's actually a large thumbnail view of this. So we can all look at this bigger. You can see just how many colors there are out here. And you could just type in 2747, and there you go, right? If you know what the color is, you can just go ahead and do a search on it. Let's go back to all of them. But here's the other interesting thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. These 14 colors are the colors that are used to mix all the other colors that you're seeing here. So Here's another bit of trivia for you to take to your next party. So Pantone colors, good stuff. Here for your thing too. And for this one, actually, I was kind of hoping you didn't need to take a lot of notes, Phyllis, because, it is so much. There's so much information. That's why I'm not a big fan of putting a lot of information on slides, but I'm doing it in this case because of the fact that there is so much and it's important things. So I want to make sure that it's visually there for you to read. So raster artwork has tiny square dots called pixels. And when artwork is sent to the printer, it's described as pixels per inch, PPI. And the printer puts ink down where each dot is located. And this results in artwork that loses resolution to print quality when enlarged. Photoshop is a raster program. What that means is sometimes you'll see things, or if you hear somebody talk about something being off register, is like you can actually see the dots. I mean, you can see pink separating from the yellows from the blues, because what happens is really all those dots are placed on top of each other. There's a blue plate, there's a cyan plate, a magenta plate, a yellow plate in the printing, and the black plate. All those things come together to make that final printed piece of work. Vector artwork has objects, mathematically defined lines and shapes. So other terms are object-oriented and PostScript. So when an Illustrator file goes to the printer, it's resolution independent. So that means it has no resolution. The artwork is not described to the printer as dots, but as entire shapes. And that results in artwork that can be enlarged without losing its crispness and smooth edges. Illustrator is a vector program. And that's why, again, going back to the why do we need all of them? It's to create the raster. You create your raster artwork in Photoshop. You create your vector artwork in Illustrator. You bring everything together in InDesign. So what is this? DPI determines the size of the dots an output device we use when printing an image. So 300 DPI laser printer uses black dots that are 1/300th of an inch. This term is often used incorrectly to describe the resolution of an image, which should be measured in pixels per inch. That's why I bring it up. LPI determines the spacing of halftone dots and therefore their maximum size. The higher the lines per inch setting, the more apparent detail you can reproduce. PPI determines how small the pixels in an image will be when printed. A setting of 150 PPI means that pixels will be 1/150th of an inch when printed. The higher the setting, the smaller the pixels. The industry standard on a printed piece is 300 PPI, and that's for a decent print job. Newspaper printing is a lot less. So desktop publishing is sometimes used synonymously with graphic design. Apple and Adobe Creative Suite have increased the speed and volume of which work can be created. As a designer, this means that you now have a lot more responsibility when it comes to aspects of desktop publishing and what you need to do to supply a final work to a printer. So, random stuff, but all those things are probably like going to help you on the test. So, some ideas for where to go from here, because like I said, we only had 8 hours together. So what to do on your own? Create your own resume website if you can do it, or you don't even. And then there's work on a portfolio. There's like a lot of sites that actually help you with this as well. What's that one? Is it Wix? Wix, I think is that. There's a couple that it just makes it so easy to just step you through it, and you could go. You can use it to showcase your stuff. Work on a portfolio. Put your portfolio in Behance. That's a website that has that, and we'll go out to that just to see an example. Again, can't stress it enough about being visible, going out to design and marketing meetups. You'll meet some phenomenal people who will be more than happy to share with you, give you advice, point you in the right direction. Maybe, has a job, that's not like published, access information about that kind of stuff. Join design groups. And there's also, does anybody know what, anybody heard of crowdsourcing? So what this has become like a really popular thing now, and it's the practice of obtaining needed services. This is the definition of it. Services, ideas, or content by soliciting contributions from a large group of people, and especially from an online community, rather than from traditionally, hiring somebody to do it. And this is what I have for it. So it's 99 designs. We can go out to it. Did I make this a link? I'm just curious. Hello? Okay. Well, anyway, we'll go out to it. Let me see if I put this other thing that I have for it too. Let's do now. It's really big, isn't it, when that happens? I think I might have it in here. Let's see. So you can just see, I have a bunch of things that I'll probably put in there. Basics of typography, a whole bunch of things. That should help you further, but let's go back. I'm digressing. Okay, let's find it. Go back to that. Just 1 second. Sorry. 99 designs. Okay, here we go. So anyway, it could be a good thing for like practicing and going through. What happens is, here's basically how it works. And this is going through that. You build a design brief. This is a client, like some client coming here who wants, say, like a logo done. They'll go here and they'll put like their specifics for it, and then people submit their versions of a logo, that they think will work or be good. And if it gets chosen, then you get paid. But if it doesn't get chosen, you're not paid for your time. But it's still, I think, a good idea for some practice for things. Let's see. Right. So here's something like that: affordable creative logo design. You tell us what they need. You say what you need. You receive dozens of designs, and then the client picks their favorite design. Could also be a good place to go to for some information. Do you set PPI in Photoshop? Yes. Do you? I believe in others. Let's go back to that. Let's see. Let's do a new one. So see, pixels per inch, pixels. So that would be ours, 300. So that's where you would do that. And of course, you could also have an image and save it as a certain PPI as well. Don't forget that when you are in here and you're doing this, to work in RGB, and then you can work in CMYK. And since I only have this, include Acrobat. Acrobat's interesting. Certainly there's nothing I love in the more than PDFs. I love PDFs, which is the final outcome of them. But I do not like having to manipulate one of them, like going in there to try to like edit something or creating forms. It definitely takes some working on that, and that's probably one of the places where I lack, because I'll do something in some other program first before I use that. But it is really a great thing. I bet you'll learn stuff that it's like, wow, that's so cool. I can do that. You can make some great forms. There's a lot of people who are really into that, and Acrobat is really great for that. You can design your form in Illustrator, not Illustrator, sorry, in InDesign, and then you bring it into Acrobat, and it can sense like those boxes, like that you usually use in a form. So it does like half the work for you. So that's one of the cool things about Acrobat, I think. But if anybody else uses it, let me know. So, I mean, really, I didn't leave a lot of time for questions, did I? But you can contact me anytime with any questions with this. And like I said, probably give me till early next week, and I will send you all the links for the. I'll have the movies up. I'll have the handouts in a Dropbox folder that I said may put it through. My handout that says, what to do now, that gives you links to, where, how to research color further, typography, creating logos, various different things. So all in there. Wow, just goes by so fast. I'm glad. Thank you. I hope you guys. I hope you guys, at least when you go out there and you look at everything now, you look at it with a little different eye. And thanks. Yeah, just that one pixel. Does everybody have that? Like if you see like one mistake, that's it. Thank you very, very much. Good group. And best of luck out there. Type of plane.